The morning sports desk for Wednesday, September 27th. Corey, it was a pretty special night of high school volleyball and a celebration of volleyball last night up in Sebeka. I'm going to give you the floor. What the heck happened last night?
Well, yeah, it was pretty cool. The Sebeka Trojans hosted the Nevis Tigers, and as a part of it, the part of the pregame, well, the whole night celebration, I guess, was a celebration of 50 years of Minnesota girls volleyball. And the two teams together, they had organized an opportunity for some folks regionally who have made a major impact in pioneering girls sports in central Minnesota. And it was just really cool. There was a nice program insert in last night's match. There was a little pregame ceremony between the anthem and starting lineups where they were all recognized for what they've done to make girls sports in the state what it is. The little presentation, it was I think the first volleyball match in the state was in Anoka in 1974, if I heard that correctly. It was immediately popular. There were maybe 8,000 girls in the state who participated.
Mm-hmm.
There's 20,000 now.
Wow.
In 2023. It's the most participated in girls sport in the state of Minnesota, I believe, in the country. And it was just really cool to be a part of. There were 5 folks recognized: Coach Pouliou and Coach Wormley of Sebeka and Nevis. They've gotten to know each other really well over the years as their time as head coach. And before the match, I asked each of them, said, I don't want to you don't need to give me a quote to put on the air, but you know what about tonight is so special? And they were obviously well, it's the sport we love. It's the sport we coach. And this is so huge. But what's even more important than that is all of these women here tonight they've been my mentor, they said. Each of them. This is I asked them independently the same question, and they each said, those 5 women have been mentors. If I have a coaching question, I can call them. They've helped me understand what it means to lead a program, but also how we can get involved locally and maybe at the state level to help grow the sport. And all 5 of them are not only mentors, they're friends. We do stuff together. We hang out together. And I just thought it was really cool. It was a special night. Of course, you go to something like that, 50 years of volleyball in the state. I immediately thought about my mom and sister who played volleyball, and I understand in this whole process, I'm just a guy, and guys haven't had much problem getting anything going in this country, maybe ever. But my mom's involvement in the sport of volleyball is directly related to me being in the sport of volleyball, right? She was a high school coach. She would help run camps in the summers, and I was oftentimes the only boy at those camps. She was a collegiate volleyball player herself. She played at St. Ben's, and it was just cool to be a part of that and think about what that, those women are a generation older than my mom, but that's it. That's all it is, right? That's you don't have to go. 1974 is not that long ago. I'm 38. That's only 11 years longer than I've been alive. It's not that long ago that this really started to happen. So it was cool to be a part of something like that.
Yeah, it was cool to get to see that. And I didn't get to listen to a ton of the game action or to you kind of talking in the lead up to it. But I did see some of the posts on the Superstation Facebook page. Looked like a really fun night. We talked about it yesterday as well in the morning sports desk about what they're doing. And it's just, it's just fun. 50 seasons of volleyball in Minnesota. It's a milestone. It's a victory lap, if you will, for the progression. Like you said, started out with 8,000 girls in it, now up to 20,000. It's really, really cool. Really, really fun. Corey, you also had a volleyball game last night between the Tigers and the Trojans. How did that game go?
Nevis is awesome.
Yeah.
They're really, really good. I think according to the QRF, it's maybe 26th in Class A.
Mm-hmm.
But they're a top 10 team according to some other polls that exist.
Right.
and they're much closer to a top 10 team than they are to 26th.
Wow.
They're awesome. They're very, very.
What
they're
about
very
them
good.
makes them awesome?
I don't know, man. Just good balance. They have the best athletes on the floor. They have their setter's incredible. They pass the ball well. They serve the ball well. They hit the ball well. They block well. They move well. They like. I don't know. Have you ever seen a good athlete? They got 6 of them on the floor at all times. They're really good. It was fun to watch.
Yeah, awesome. So that was your game last night up in Speke, of course, the 50th season of high school volleyball being honored and all that good stuff. So awesome. Speaking of awesome things happening, Corey, the Minnesota Twins win again. They now have 84 wins on the season, although it doesn't really matter how many wins they have at this point because they've already clinched the American League Central.
Yep.
Things still stand the same if the season ended today. Even though Houston lost last night to Seattle, they still hold the 6th seed, although it's only by a half game. And looking at the way that these playoffs are shaking up, the Twins needing to kind of get some things together, get some things kind of meshed right, and that's what they're planning on doing. But we'll talk about that in a second. First off, what Matt Wallner did to a baseball yesterday would have gotten him convicted of war crimes by the Geneva Convention. He absolutely murdered that thing.
I was my usual routine. I'm going to give you a little insight. When I do a game a week, and it's an opportunity for me to, when those games are over with, I usually call my folks. It's like a once a week opportunity to check in with them and just see what's going on. And I called my dad, and he goes, Matt Wallner just hit the longest home run I've ever seen at Target Field. I'm like, what? Mm-hmm. Farther than the Jim Thome home run? Because that was insane what Jim Thome did. He goes, it went halfway up the seats in right field. And I was like, that's a bomb. And then I saw it. I saw a highlight of it. Right field is not quite, it was like right center field that he hit it, and it went halfway up. He obliterated that baseball. I've never seen anything like that.
StatCast said it was 463 feet.
Yeah.
And, who knows if that's accurate or not. I think the way Target Field is with the seats being so, they're straight up.
Yeah.
Sometimes it might, misjudge of how far it actually went. But that's still a moonshot. And there's a couple things about it. One, I still can't find the ball. I've watched that replay maybe 50 times. I still don't know where that ball landed. It could still be floating around in space right now.
Well, it's funny because there's nobody up there, right? It's a Tuesday night during the school year.
They're playing a team with 108 losses in Oakland.
There's nobody in those seats, but 3 people in the camera shot, and they're going
straight up.
It's like watching Plinko in reverse. They're just trying to figure out where that ball might be and weave their way up. They're not using the stairs. They're like climbing over the seat. It was an incredible home run.
It's incredible. And the other thing about it was Justin Morneau's call. So Justin Morneau, the bases were loaded for Wallner, 2 out. It was a 3-1 count. And Morneau, because Wallner is a big swinging lefty, and Morneau is a big swinging lefty.
Yep.
Morneau knows exactly what his approach is going to be. And Morneau's 3-1 count, bases loaded. It's I'm swinging. Basically, I'm paraphrasing. It's I'm swinging out of my shoes trying to hit a home run here.
Yep.
And Wallner did. And Bramer, and I appreciate him on this, he just got quiet. He just let that happen because Morneau basically called it.
Yeah. And
that thing just towered. And Morneau could tell that Bramer wasn't going to say anything. And so Morneau's okay, I guess I got to say something. He's just, oh my. That's the only thought he could muster is, and then he gets out a sentence after they're going, I've never seen a ball hit that far at Target Field.
It was crazy, and if I'm not mistaken, that was a grand slam.
That's a grand slam. Wallner has 2 grand slams this year.
That's what they're
Royce
doing
Lewis
with grand
has
slams.
3 grand slams this year.
Yep.
Carlos Correa has 1 grand slam this year. It's tied for the most grand slams the Twins have hit in a season.
Also, the pitcher had walked the bases loaded.
Uh-huh.
So this is another thing I learned in that conversation. It was not that the pitcher had walked the bases loaded, but the 3 batters previous did a really good job of not offering at any of the off-speed stuff.
Uh-huh.
So he had to come with something to Wallner. I mean, you can't walk another guy, right? You have to throw a strike. You have to, more times than not, the batter's going to get themselves out. Well, Wallner did exactly like you talked about with Morneau. One of my favorite characteristics of Justin Morneau was that when the count was in his favor, he would do this thing where his eyes would get really big and he'd puff up his cheeks. And then he'd swing harder than anybody I'd ever seen. He would try to hit home runs. It was never about, you'd hear Twins players in the past say, I was just trying to get good wood on it, right? I was just trying to barrel something up. And Morneau would be like, I'm trying to hit this ball 500 feet.
I'm trying to hit it into the third deck above the baggie at the Metrodome.
Yes. And Wallner he's like, this guy is not throwing anything off speed for a strike, which means he has to come with something fast and straight, and I'm going to be ready. And he was. He
absolutely destroyed that thing. It's crazy, the production that the Twins are getting from these rookies and from this team. It feels like they're getting hot at the right time. And look, they've done studies on this. It doesn't matter if you're playing bad, if you're playing good, if you're playing indifferent. Once you get to the playoffs, literally nothing matters. Like, it's a completely new season. Everything kind of changes because the game just is so much different than the regular season. But I believe it's better than not to be playing well as the Twins go into the second half. They have a 96 win pace since the second half started, and only the Orioles have a better record since the All-Star break.
And I'd be interested to know too, like, the studies show that it doesn't matter if you're playing bad or playing well or whatever, but is that just taking into account wins and losses? Like, it doesn't matter.
I'm not sure. I haven't looked at the nitty-gritty of the study, but that's kind of
you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it's still important to be playing good baseball. Whether that is translating to wins is one thing, right? But you know, are you? They've got some pieces in place, and they're, take advantage of a really bad Oakland team. Like
109 losses for Oakland.
Yeah, and by the way, you can play bad and beat Oakland. So, can you play well at the end of the season? Like, that's sort of like the middle ground that needs to happen here. But that first playoff game, by the way, is Tuesday. So they'll play Sunday to wrap up the regular season. They get Monday off. The first playoff game comes Tuesday, like you mentioned, against opponent kind of yet to be determined.
Yeah, right now it is the Astros, could still be the Rangers, could still be the Mariners, could still be the Blue Jays. We probably won't know until Monday morning or Sunday afternoon.
Can I give you 90 seconds to kind of spew on something?
Yeah.
Again, continuing the conversation I had with my dad last night. He kind of threw out the question. It's something we've talked about very briefly off air, but it is kind of an important one because the Twins seem to be kind of clicking here at the end of the season. What are the Twins going to do about Byron Buxton? And that is meant more specifically, like, does he make the wild card? Is he on the roster for the wild card playoff series and then reassessed from there? Like, what's going to happen? What do you think is going to happen? What do you want to happen? There's a lot of weird ground that's happening with Buxton right now.
Yeah, first of all, I want Byron Buxton to be starting in center field for game one. I think every Twins fan wants that, and I think Byron Buxton wants that. It's a matter of progressing and getting him healthy to do that. He's going to do a simulated game today, and they're kind of going to see how he is and how he recovered mainly, and the more important thing is how he looks tomorrow. But look, I think at the very least, Byron Buxton does need to be on the postseason roster if he can go. But at the same time, he's rushing himself back like he's tried to do because he wants to play. He wants to get in these games. He doesn't want to miss time. And then he sometimes opens the door to him not re-aggravating, but just necessarily not quite playing at full strength. So I think, realistically, if you're on a gut level, I feel like Buxton's not going to be on the wild card series roster. But if you're the Twins, are you like, what if we keep Buxton rehabbing and resting, and we hope we get past that wild card series and potentially in an ALDS, then you have Byron Buxton out there game one in center field.
Is 75% Byron Buxton better than what they currently have going?
Better than like an Andrew Stevenson being on the roster? Yeah, I would say so.
But starting in center field?
Yeah, I mean, look, I know he hasn't had a good season, but he's talented. You gotta let him get a shot. And it's the playoffs. You got to just throw your best guys out there. And the thing with playoff baseball, like we talked about with pitchers, if Buxton doesn't have it, yank him. Like that's Michael A. Taylor can fill in. You have some other options. Willie Castro can fill in. But I think Buxton he's just so good. I know he hasn't had the season that he's wanted to, whether injuries, whether when he's played, he hasn't hit very well, but we all know Byron Buxton. We all know he's a streaky player, and you want to bank on him having a hot streak at the most important time in the playoffs. And I know people say, well, just get him off the roster. We don't need him. The Twins do need him. He's talented. The Twins haven't won a playoff game in 20 years. It's all hands on deck at this point. And if Byron Buxton can provide even a little bit of value, the Twins will take that on the roster over a player like an Andrew Stevenson. And I think another thing that's important to keep in mind with the playoffs is during the regular season, the Twins at most can have 13 pitchers on the roster. So they do that. And so the other 13 players are position players. In the postseason, the Twins will have less than 13 pitchers because they want more hitters. You want more bench options in terms of like post-game running or substitution, defensive situations. So you could very well see that the Twins can easily make room for Byron Buxton on this postseason roster, and you don't carry like a Josh Winder on your team, or maybe you don't carry some other kind of down the wire, down in the shuffle pitcher. I think Byron Buxton does end up on the playoff roster at some point, but again, is it for the wild card series? I don't necessarily think so, but maybe I'm thinking too much ahead. On a gut level, I feel like Buxton is not quite ready to go, but Buxton has came back when he's not quite been healthy anyway, so we'll see. This has been the Morning Sports Desk for Wednesday, September 27th. It's 7:33 on KWAD. Here's MNN News.
Minnesota News Network, I'm Bren Paul. Governor Tim Walz is still working to find a director for the new Office of Cannabis Management after